Corporate Corpse Saga, Cubicle of Wrath. Richard Corporate Corpse sat in his dimly lit basement, surrounded by the wreckage of his short-lived empire. Empty monster cans formed a sad pyramid on his desk. His Nobel Peace Prize sat on a shelf collecting dust, right next to a stack of unpaid bills. The Oracle of Blow had completely taken over. Hefe's cartel hadn't just stolen the code, they had turned it into something monstrous. Using Manipulate AI's psychological engine, they were now running the most effective recruitment operation in the Western Hemisphere. They didn't just traffic coke anymore. They trafficked people. Disaffected, angry, broke young men, and increasingly older ones, were being psychologically profiled, groomed, and radicalized at scale. Oracle of Blow knew exactly what to say to a burned-out 50-year-old with 2.5 degrees who just got laid off for the 4th time. And they were making bank. Richard had spent the last 2 months spiraling. First, the lawsuit against the cartel went exactly as expected, nowhere. His lawyer ghosted him after the 3rd death threat. Then came the final financial collapse. He tried day trading to get back on his feet, lost $47,000 in 11 days chasing sure things recommended by a guy named Chad Crypto 69. His ex-wife somehow got a judge to increase child support, even though the kids were in their 20s. His daughter started an OnlyFans and asked him to promote it for exposure. He sold his car, then his gaming PC. Then he seriously considered selling his Nobel medal on eBay. Every night the same nightmare returned. He's in a Zoom interview. "So, Richard, you haven't worked in 5 years. What have you been doing?" "I ended World War III. "Interesting. How do you feel about open plan offices and mandatory happy hours?" He always woke up drenched in sweat. One particularly ugly night, as Richard was eating cold spaghetti straight from the pot, his phone rang. Jefe. "Mi amigo Corpse, how are you, brother? I heard things are not so good for you." Richard's voice was pure venom. "You stole my app, you greasy fucking narco." "Stole? No, we improved it," Jefe laughed. "Oracle of Blow is beautiful. We use it to find angry men just like you. Men who hate the system. Men with nothing to lose. Business has never been better." Richard gripped the phone so hard his knuckles turned white. Then the line switched. The general's tired voice came through. "Corpse, listen to me. We've been tracking Oracle of Blow. The cartel isn't just using it for drugs anymore. They're partnering with Islamist networks in Europe, moving product, moving fighters, moving money. Your tech is helping build the next generation of chaos." Richard let out a bitter laugh. "So what? You want me to sue them again? I'm eating spaghetti with ketchup, General. I'm 1 bad week away from updating my LinkedIn." There was a long pause. "We have a different proposal," the general said. "We want you inside, deep undercover. You go into one of the cartel's European recruitment pipelines. You use everything you know about the original Manipulate AI to tear them apart from within. Your rage is authentic. Your story is perfect. A broken, formerly famous anti-corporate guy who got screwed by the system and is looking for purpose. They'll eat that shit up." Richard stared at his reflection in the black computer screen. Unshaven, tired, dangerous. "And if I do this suicide mission?" "Full immunity, all legal fees paid, destruction of Oracle of Blow, and you get the original source code back. Plus, enough money that you'll never have to interview again. Ever." Richard was quiet for almost a full minute. Then that familiar, unhinged half-smile appeared on his face. "Fine. But I'm documenting everything. New album, new songs, the whole thing." "What are you calling it?" the general asked warily. "From the Cubicle to the cartel." Jefe's voice suddenly cut back in, laughing in the background. "Orale, this is gonna be fun, Corpse. Welcome to the family, cabron." Richard cracked open his last warm monster like it was a bottle of champagne. "Tell your boys to get ready," he said coldly. "Corporate Corpse is coming to collect." Richard arrived in Europe with nothing but a fake passport, a burner phone, 3 changes of clothes, and 25 years of pent-up cubicle rage. His cover story was airtight. Disillusioned American ex-corporate drone, radicalized online after losing everything: Nobel Prize, money, dignity. A perfect recruit for the networks using Oracle of Blow to funnel angry Westerners into the cause. He made contact in a rainy industrial suburb outside Brussels. Within 48 hours, they had him. The interrogation room was a damp basement that smelled like mold, fear, and cheap cigarettes. 3 serious-looking men stood over him. One had a beard that could hide a small arsenal. Another held a tablet running what Richard immediately recognized as a customized version of his own stolen app. They started easy. Questions about his past, his songs, why he hated the West. Then they moved to the pain. They beat him, waterboarded him, used techniques designed to break trained agents. Hours passed. Richard's face was bloody, ribs bruised, but something in him refused to crack. The leader leaned in close, eyes burning with suspicion. "You are too calm, American." "Too prepared. Who sent you? CIA? The General? Speak truth, or we will make you beg for death." Richard spat blood onto the concrete floor and started laughing, that low, unhinged corporate corpse laugh. "Ha ha ha ha. Oh, you pathetic fucking amateurs." The room went quiet. "You think this is torture?" he growled, voice raw but gaining strength. "You strap me to a chair and pour some water on my face? Cute. Real fucking cute." He looked each of them dead in the eyes, blue eyes blazing with pure contempt. "For 25 goddamn years, I sat in fluorescent-lit cubicles while soul-sucking middle managers drained my life force one pointless meeting at a time. I survived performance reviews that felt like psychological waterboarding. I watched my soul get laid off quarterly while they called it right-sizing. I ate stale pizza during all-hands meetings where they celebrated firing my friends so the CEO could buy another boat. I had HR Barbies gaslight me about work-life balance while expecting Slack replies at 2 a.m. I survived 2.5 degrees worth of corporate bullshit just to watch H-1B consultants take my job and call it efficiency. I lost my house, my savings, my fucking dignity. Also, some C-suite vampire could hit his quarterly numbers." He leaned forward as much as the restraints allowed, blood dripping from his split lip, wearing the most defiant half-smile they'd ever seen. "So go ahead, motherfuckers. Keep torturing me. Your little pain games feel like my daughter trying to tickle me on a Sunday morning. This is amateur hour. I've been through performance improvement plans from hell that lasted longer and hurt worse than anything your goat-fucking egos can dream up." The room was dead silent. The leader stared at him for a long moment, then slowly started nodding. "Wallahi, this one is real." They cut him loose from the chair. One of them even offered him a cigarette. "Brother," the leader said with new respect, "you have suffered more under their system than most of our martyrs. Welcome." Richard took the cigarette, lit it, and exhaled like a man who had just passed the worst job interview of his life. "Yeah, whatever. Just point me at something useful before I change my mind and start singing Taking Shit at Work in here." Deep undercover, Corporate Corpse was officially in, and the cartel and everyone else had no idea what kind of chaos they'd just invited in. The next few days were surreal. Richard was given a dingy safe-house room that smelled like wet socks and gun oil. They fed him rice, beans, and surprisingly decent tea. No one blindfolded him anymore. He was officially in. But the real problem quickly became clear. He had zero fucking clue what to do next. Late on the 3rd night, While the rest of the house was praying or arguing about whose turn it was to clean the AKs, Richard slipped into the bathroom, pulled out the encrypted satellite phone the general had given him, and dialed. The general picked up immediately. "Corpse, report." Richard whispered harshly, "Report? I'll give you a fucking report. I'm sitting in a jihadi safe house in Belgium with a bunch of guys who think I'm the real deal because I compared waterboarding to a bad performance review. What the fuck am I supposed to do now? You didn't exactly give me a mission brief, General. Am I blowing something up? Stealing data? Turning these idiots against each other? I need actual instructions before I accidentally start a middle management layer in this clown operation." There was a long pause on the line. "You're doing exactly what we hoped," the general said. "Blend in. Gather intel, identify leadership, look for connections between the cartel and the networks, and if opportunity presents itself, disrupt." "Disrupt," Richard repeated flatly. "Great, very specific. I feel so prepared with my 2.5 degrees. He hung up, flushed the toilet for cover, and stepped back into the common room. That's when things got weird. A group of younger guys, mostly Europeans in their early 20s who had converted hard, were sitting around drinking tea and arguing. When Richard walked in, they went quiet. Then one of them spoke up. "Brother Richard, the way you spoke to the emir during interrogation, you showed no fear. You mocked death itself. How?" Richard snorted and dropped into a plastic chair like it was a cubicle. "Because I've seen worse, kid. 25 years in corporate America. I've sat through all-day strategy sessions where death would have been a mercy. These guys think threatening to kill me is scary? Try getting a 2% merit increase after carrying an entire team for a year. That's psychological warfare." The young guys stared at him wide-eyed. One of them, a skinny French kid who called himself Abu Khalid, laughed nervously. "You speak like a man who has already died inside." "Multiple times," Richard said, cracking his knuckles. "I've had managers who made your emir look like a motivational speaker. At least when you die here, it's quick. In corporate, you die slowly while they call it professional growth." The room erupted in laughter. From that moment on, his "fuck this shit" attitude became legendary among the younger recruits. He started dropping lines like, "Bro, relax. I've survived worse than this in quarterly planning meetings. You call this dangerous? Try giving a presentation to C-suite while your numbers are red. Death is nothing. Have you ever had to explain to your boss why you missed a deadline because the cloud service went down?" The kids ate it up. They started calling him the Cubicle Mujahid. Some of them began mimicking his sarcastic, zero-fucks-given demeanor toward hierarchy. Even the stricter commanders noticed how the younger fighters were suddenly more motivated, not out of religious zeal, but because Corpse made the whole thing feel like one big middle finger to the system. Richard, meanwhile, was quietly building influence and feeding every detail back to the general. 2 weeks into his undercover nightmare, the emir finally gave Richard his first real mission. "Brother Corpse," the bearded commander said solemnly, "you will lead a small team to acquire critical supplies for the cause." Richard nodded, expecting guns, explosives, or encrypted laptops. Instead, they handed him a shopping list: toilet paper, rice, cooking oil, cigarettes, and, because Allah is merciful, Monster Energy, the blue one. "Make it quick and discreet," the emir warned. Richard looked at the list, then at his 3 young companions, Abu Khalid, the French kid, a German convert named Yusuf, and a quiet Swedish guy who barely spoke. He grinned like a man who had just been promoted to middle management. "Boys, let's go do some fucking logistics." The mission went sideways immediately. They were in a sketchy cash-and-carry warehouse outside Antwerp at 2 a.m. when the young guys started asking questions. The kind of questions Corpse's sarcasm had been planting like landmines. While loading boxes of rice into a stolen van, Abu Khalid spoke up. "Brother Richard, why do we spend so much time arguing about who gets the best prayer spot when the leaders have nice houses and new cars? Isn't that kinda corporate? Richard laughed so hard he almost dropped a crate. Kid, you just described every fucking company I ever worked for. Top guys preaching sacrifice while they fly business class. Welcome to Jihad Inc., Yusuf piled on. And why do we have to ask permission for every little thing? It feels like middle management. Richard slammed the van door and turned to them, eyes glowing with pure, unfiltered rage. Because this whole operation is run by the same breed of cock-sucking bureaucrats as every Fortune 500 company. They just traded PowerPoint for prayer rugs and stock options for virgins. Same bullshit, different branding. The Swedish kid, who almost never spoke, muttered, "This feels inefficient." Richard spun around like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. Inefficient? Boys, let me tell you about inefficiency. I once spent 6 weeks in meetings about whether the new office coffee machine should have a touchscreen. 6 fucking weeks. Your leaders arguing about tack fear and proper beard length is amateur hour compared to corporate America. The 3 young jihadists stared at him, visibly shaken. Richard kept going, now fully in corporate corpse mode. You think dying for the cause is scary? Try watching your entire department get laid off right before bonus season so the CEO can buy a new yacht. That's soul-crushing, you little shits. At least here you get paradise. In corporate, you get a LinkedIn message that says, "We've decided to go in a different direction." By the time they got back to the safe house, the young guys weren't just questioning things. They were vibing with the rebellion. Abu Khalid whispered to the others, "He's right. The brothers upstairs have been living pretty nice while we eat beans and sleep on mats." The next morning, 3 younger fighters asked Richard for private counsel. He gave them the full corporate corpse experience, complete with expletive-laden tirades about hierarchy, fake piety, and how the top dogs always protect their own asses while sending the grunts to die. The emir noticed the shift. He didn't like it, so he gave Richard a real mission next: lead a small sabotage operation against a Belgian power substation. Richard smiled that dangerous half-smile and said, "Finally, some fucking measurable outcomes." The night of the big sabotage mission, Richard slipped away from the group with the encrypted phone. He dialed the general, whispering harshly behind a dumpster. "All right, you glorious bastard, I'm about to blow up a power substation. Walk me through this. Do I actually detonate it, or is this some 4D chess fake-out? I didn't survive 25 years of corporate America just to die in Belgium because of bad middle management and jihad." The general replied quickly, "Disable it, but don't fully destroy it. We need the network disruption without civilian casualties. Plant the charges, set the timer, and get the hell out. This will flush out their European contacts." A voice behind him cut through the night like a gunshot. "Traitor!" The emir's top lieutenant stood there with 3 armed men, phone in hand. He had been listening the entire time. Within minutes, Richard was dragged back to the main safe house, beaten, zip-tied to a chair, and staring down the barrel of multiple guns. The emir paced in front of him like a disappointed middle manager. "You dog! You filthy agent of the evil Western system!" The emir screamed. "All this time you were spying for them!" Richard looked up, blood running from his nose, and let out a tired, unhinged laugh. "Fuck off!" he spat. "Agent of the system? Are you fucking serious right now?" He leaned forward as much as the restraints allowed, eyes blazing with pure Cubicle-forged contempt. "I'm not sure what the fuck I'm even doing here, man. One minute, I'm ending World War III with a rap verse. Next minute, I'm broke and eating cold spaghetti. Now I'm in Belgium with you glorified middle managers playing terrorist. But I can tell you one thing for damn sure." He looked the emir dead in the eyes. "I ain't no agent of any system run by pricks. Not yours, not theirs, not the fucking corporate vampires who ruined my life. I'm just a tired, pissed-off 50-year-old with 2.5 degrees who's sick of all you suit-wearing, beard-growing, PowerPoint-reading, KPI-chasing motherfuckers telling people what to die for. The room went dead silent. The emir raised his pistol, pressing it against Richard's forehead. "Then you die as a traitor." Richard closed his eyes and smiled that signature half-smile. Finally, some fucking measurable outcomes. Just as the emir's finger tightened on the trigger, chaos erupted. "No!" Abu Khalid stepped forward, rifle raised. Behind him, nearly 24 of the younger fighters had their weapons pointed at the emir and his inner circle. "Enough!" Abu Khalid shouted. "We've listened to this man. He speaks truth. You sit in safe houses while we risk everything. You preach sacrifice but live like kings. You are no better than the corporate dogs he warned us about." Yusuf joined in. "Corporate corpse is the only one who's real. He's suffered more than all of us combined." The Swedish kid, of all people, stepped up with surprising volume. "He's our new leader now." The emir's face twisted in rage, but it was too late. The younger generation had spoken, and they had the guns. In under 2 minutes, it was over. The old guard was disarmed. The emir was on his knees. Richard, still zip-tied to the chair, looked around at the chaos and started laughing like a madman. Well, fuck me. I just pulled off a hostile takeover. Abu Khalid cut him loose and handed him a gun. "What are your orders, corporate corpse?" Richard stood up slowly, cracked his neck, and looked at the bound emir with pure disdain. "First, someone get me a fucking monster. Then we're doing a complete restructuring of this clown operation." He looked at the young fighters who were staring at him with something dangerously close to hope. "Welcome to Jihad 2.0, boys. New management just came in.